Today we're going to add an engraved metal box into our scene, and I'm going to show you how the Blender cloth simulator works as I make a tablecloth that's going to be partially over our table here. So let's get on. And this box is quite easy. It's not going to take us very long, I hope. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a cube into our scene, and let's drop it down onto the table. And in fact the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to scale everything down a bit. Well, I'm going to scale our cut down. I think it's too big, so I need to make sure that I've got the centre of it as well, and scale it down. And I'm going to alter the proportions of it a bit as well. I'm going to move it, scale it in the Y direction a bit, and that will do us. Right, and the reason I wanted to do that, I want to give us a bit more room. If I go back to camera view, you see now we've got room for more things in here, and this will eventually turn into a little still life with some fruit and stuff in there, because that lets me show you how to do some other modelling tasks. So let's go back to our cube that we just added, and I'm going to scale it to the size and shape of this box. And something like that, like a trinket box type size would do. And if I view front, and I'm going to turn the display into orthographic projection because it's easier to line things up that way. And another thing you can do is you can hide things. Now I'm going to hide this just from the editor, this plane here in front, which has our background image on it. So I've got that selected. I can go up here, and I can see here it is. That's the wall. Don't want to hide that one. It's this one I want to hide. So I'm going to select that, and hang on a minute. No, I had the right one. Interior, that's the one. And if I click on this eye here, you'll see it vanishes. It's still there when you render it, which is controlled by that camera. If I was to click that camera, then it wouldn't even render either, but it's going to render now with that camera on. But with that eye there shut, I won't be able to see it. So you're going to go view front like that, and what I want to do is I want to change our table. I'm going to change the actual viewport colour of it, not the material up here. If we come down into settings, we've got a viewport colour there. I'm just going to make it a different viewport colour so that it's obvious what it is. Reselect our glass, bring it down, select this, bring it down. Now everything's actually on the table. You can see there's no gap there. And that's what we wanted. So the next thing I'm going to do, with the cube here selected, I hit view selected up here, and I'm going to go back into perspective because I find orthographic view quite confusing myself. Some people work with it all the time. I find it difficult. Where I'm an artist, I'm used to seeing things in perspective. So we're going to go into edit mode. Now our box wants a lid, and it would be quite complicated to make a hollow box with a lid. We don't need to do that, we just need to give it the appearance of a lid. So the way we do that, we're going to loop cut and slide, like so, and click, then move the mouse to the point where we want it. And how deep's our lid going to be? Something like that, I think. Then I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to loop cut and slide, and I'm going to put it just underneath that first line, and one more loop cut and slide. I'm going to put it just underneath the last one. Now, can anyone guess what we're going to do? What we're going to do is we're going to make sure we've got vertices selected down here, and I'm going to go for that middle one here, and I'm going to select either end of it like that. Go to the select menu, edge loops, and that's got all of it. I'm then going to press S, and I'm going to scale it in, because this is actually our lid, so that we've got that gap around there. And you can make that as deep or as shallow as you like. I'm going to make it a bit shallower than that, because I think that's a bit unrealistically large of a gap. So I've just selected those two vertices, then to select edge loops again, and grab the handle, and I'm just going to pull that down, just leaving a much smaller gap like that. Now you could leave it like that, but most of these boxes have some sort of lid shape to them, and I'm going to put a very simple lid shape on this. So if we click loop cut and slide again, this time it's going to be in the centre. I'm going to leave it there, so I'm just going to click the mouse again. Then I'm going to come down here. I'm just going to select that middle, which allows me to select edges. I'm going to select that edge. I'm going to pull it up. So that's the shape that our box is going to be. You can see it there. Now we want to put some materials on that. So I'm going to go in new. I'm going to rename the material to box. And this is going to be an engraved metal box. Now if you go into Google and do a search in Google Images for engraved metal texture, you'll find a whole load of fancy patterned engraved metal textures, and I've already downloaded one. So the next thing we need to do is we need to UV unwrap this box. So we'll come up here, UV edit. I'm going to do it on the top view, and hopefully they'll come out straight. This is something that sometimes happens. Oops, I need to select all, unwrap, smart UV project. Okay. A. Box it, scale it. This time we're going to make it quite a bit bigger actually. What the heck. And I'm going to grab it. And I'm going to move. Now at the moment I don't know which one of these lines is which, and I need to find that out, so bear with me just a second. I need to find out which is the outside of the line. Into compositing. Now what we're going to use here is we're going to use a mix of two different shaders. So I'm going to add a mix shader. I'm going to add a glossy shader. and there's already a diffuse shader on there, so I don't need to add that. There we go. I'm going to move that a little bit towards the yellow because it's a metal, and metals usually reflect tinted in their own colour, not by very much. And the diffuse is going to be a nice gold colour, maybe a bit redder than that, like so. And then the final thing I need to do is I need to add our texture, but this time the texture isn't going to affect the colour. So our image texture is going to come in. Stick that down there. Open it. Oh, actually I've already loaded it, so I don't need to open it. Hang on a minute. Cancel that. Come down here. You can see we've already got it. It's that one arabesque pattern. Then I'm going to add a thing called a bump node, which is in the vector menu, and this alters the actual surface but not the colour. It makes it look like there's lumps on it. The colour I'm going to connect straight to normal. I know from experience that this is going to be a lot too high, even at around about 0.1, and I'm going to need to add a converter node, a maths node, to divide it down even further. So I'm going to connect that in there. This value is going to be 0.1 ish, might have to change that in a minute. And the output of that goes to displacement. So now if I zoom in on this, I should instead, if I turn that onto rendered, I should be able to see a pattern, and there's a pattern on that side of the lid. It's a bit wonky because I haven't done anything with it yet. Let's go back to UV editing. And zoom in on that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move that vertex there and hit GX, which means I'll move it only in one direction. I'll move it that way. And hit that one. And again GX. So what I'm doing is I'm squaring this up now. So it's this one for sure. But which way around have I got it? Have I got it the right way around? Yes, I have. I have got it the right way around. And I can tell that because there's this little blob in the centre, which is that little blob there. So that's good. So now I can go back into solid mode and this one and grab scale it right up and grab. I'm trying to make it so it's about the same size as the other one. Grab that one there, G for grab, X for the direction I want to move it in. Because if I didn't put the X in, it could go in any damn direction. G, X. And that's it. I don't really need to worry so much about the rest of them because the lid is going to be really obvious, I think, if it's wrong, if the pattern doesn't match across it. The rest of them probably not so. So if I now select all and we'll just get a nicely textured box. So that's our box, almost, not quite. And this is called solid surface modelling, what we're doing here. If I go back to default view, there's one thing I want to do, and that is whenever you get something metal like this, the corners are never exact. There's always little bend lines along them, and thankfully we've got a modifier here that will do that for us. So if we click on the tool icon there, and we want bevel, and you can see we put these bevels on there, and we can drop or increase the size of those bevels. It says they're 1 centimetre, so I need to change the scale of this scene in a minute. Segment's 1, which is fine. You can have more than one segment, in which case it's going to start to go into a circle, and I don't think that's what we want in this case. So that's that, and we can just leave that. And now if we render it, we'll see what we've got. And you can see we've got a box. Now this is actually still far too deep, so I'm going to stop that. And it's also maybe a little bit too reflective, or not enough, I'm not sure. So if I go back to compositing, and we can see what we've got there. And I'm going to make that, I've got that set to add, that's why it should be set to multiply. That's better. That's much better. Phew! I was thinking I was going mad. Yep, that's much better. Right, now we want to worry about this factor up here, because we want to make it look like metal. Now we can take that all the way across there, and what we've got is all reflection. We can take it all the way down there, and what we've got is all diffuse. And we want it just a tiny bit of reflection, typically for metal, maybe not a lot. We also want to take the glossy roughness right the way down. I think that's going to do for our metal for the moment. We might have to tinker about with it later in the final scene. Materials are things you're always playing with, you're always changing. So that's our box, and that wasn't really too difficult, was it? Apart from a little bit of a problem with the UVs. So, we'll go back to default. Now what I want to do, I want to put this tablecloth on, and I can do that. And I want to show hard render view. What I want to do is I want to do a magician's trick and whip all these out of the way. And I've already got them, let's go into object mode, I've already got them at the right height, so I don't want to change the height for the moment, so I'm going to hit shift on this one as well, and bye bye. I might always bring them in later. So, cloth simulator, to make a tablecloth, I'm going to first of all add a plane, and this is going to be our cloth. Okay, so add mesh plane, and let's bring that down here somewhere. And I don't care if it's on the table, because it's going to fall on the table in a minute. And we're going to scale this up a fair way, so we've got a decent amount of cloth to play with. Don't need as much of it coming out in this direction perhaps as I do in that direction there. And that was the scaling handles that I just used. Right, so the next thing I want to do is go into edit mode. Now the cloth simulator needs a lot of vertices to work with. At the moment we've only got 4, got one at each edge. So what we need to do is subdivide how many cuts there. It says I'm going to forget that. I'm just going to repeatedly subdivide it. And that will do. I think that's more than enough for us. Back into object mode. I'm going to lift this right up because I need to make this an interesting shape. And there's some techniques you can use with Cloth Simulator to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a modifier here. Oops, no I'm not. I'm going to go to the physics panel, which is this bouncing ball, and hit cloth. And we'll know this is going to be a silky tablecloth, but I'm going to use the cotton the cotton presets. Then I'm going to add a cylinder. Why am I adding cylinder? Because I want to fold a part of this tablecloth. So you can't just kind of fold it in by editing it very easily and get a good result. So it's going to be a cylinder. Let's bring this forward, and I'm going to rotate it about. It's going to come that way. It's going to come that way. And this is all just to give our cloth a nice shape, a pleasing shape. Scale it down in that direction. Scale it even further actually. Then I'm going to scale it in the Y direction. Then I'm going to scale it in the X direction to make it a bit more round again. And I want this to go all the way along underneath our cloth so that it kind of flops around. And I need to move that up. Right, so now I'm going to right click this cylinder we just added, which is only a temporary thing that's going to disappear in a minute, and enable physics for collision. I'm not going to change anything. This table here I already have enable physics for collision because I tried this out earlier. Surprise, surprise. And I'm going to move this cloth up until it's not quite poking through our tablecloth. Move this cylinder up rather. Something like that. Okay. Now if I click here, that takes the animation pointer back to the start, and if I hit the play button, you can watch the cloth fall and slowly deform. And you can see it kind of wrapping around there and making a nice big crease, which is what I wanted to do, because it will make it a bit interesting later. And you can have as many things under the tablecloth as you like. Then I'm going to hit the stop button down there because I think that's as far as we want to go, and select my tablecloth. You see it's got apply and apply a shape key. I'm just going to apply it, to be honest, because it's only going to be a single colour tablecloth. I would have UV textured it, UV unfolded it before I actually did the cloth simulator if it was going to be a pattern, but it's not going to be a pattern. So that's that. So we're going to take that up. You can see the cloth has retained the shape of the cylinder. We can now get rid of the cylinder, but what I want to put underneath it instead is a cube, and that's because I'm going to sit the box on top of the cube. It's like there's something underneath the tablecloth, the box is on top of the tablecloth. Quite a cool effect really. And I'm going to move this tablecloth over a bit first. I'm going to add my cube. There it is. I'm going to use the scaling handles to give it a sort of book size. I mean, is it a book that's underneath there? I don't know, but it kind of looked like one. And again, I'm going to rotate it, because if someone's going to put a book down on the table, then dump the tablecloth on top of it. Maybe I want to scale it up a bit from there. Make it a bit thinner, like so. So, now what I do is I'll right click the book to make sure that's selected, go into the physics panel, enable collision on it again, right click my cloth here, change the handles back to scale, back to move handles rather than scale handles. I'm going to drop it just over our book, and then I can see where it comes there, and it's actually not scaled enough in this direction towards me, and it doesn't matter, the cloth simulator is not going to care about us rescaling it at this point. It's not going to care at all. So there we go. And I can scale it a bit more than that actually if I want to. Like so. Maybe. And I can maybe rotate it if I want to too. Something like that. And that looks good. So now if we take our animation bar here back to 0 again, we'll hit play. Oops, no, I didn't give this a cloth. Didn't say it was cloth, did I? Cloth, cotton. Yeah, that's okay. Do that again. This is going to take a bit longer because now you've got a more complicated shape. And the whole purpose is just to make the surface of the cloth as it lays on the table more interesting. If you look at old masters, still lifes, the cloth is never unwrinkled. It's always got some folds or rumples or creases or whatever in it, and that's the kind of effect we're going for here. And you just need to leave it to settle down, which will take a few frames. And once it's settled down, we can stop. And I think that will do. So I'm going to press stop there. And you can leave this going for as long as you like. You can have other objects, you can have a ball or something underneath it if you want. But that's what I'm going to do. And the book is temporary, or the actual block is temporary, so I'm going to get rid of that. That's all gone. And I need to remember to go into the modifiers panel for this and apply it. That's absolutely fine. So now we've got a piece of cloth, and we can do with that bent up piece of cloth what we want. We can move it around, we can play with it. So we now want to bring our objects back into the scene. So I'm going to collect my wine glass over here, move this in, collect my box over here, which will now be at the wrong height. As you can see, and I want that box to be somewhere there. Now if I go into camera view, that will let me arrange everything as it's going to be seen in the camera. So I'm going to lift that up, I'm going to click on the cloth, Then putting the cloth in. Click on the box. And I don't really like the box just straight on like that. It's not very interesting, is it? So let's have the box rotated a bit more. And make sure we're actually on top of our piece of cloth, otherwise the shadows will give us away. You can see we weren't. Need to be about there, so let's slide that back a bit. And we can have it coming over the edge a bit like that if we like. And that's pretty cool. And now I'm going to do something, because I noticed it says 1 centimetre here in the bevel. I've noticed I've actually got a scale set on here, so I need to change it. I think it's in my scene settings, I'm not sure where it is now. Scene settings, yeah, it says metric. Well, unit processes. Centimeters. And now if I select that, and yeah, and that says 0.1 millimeters. That's a bit better. It should render better now because it will think the glass isn't quite so thick as it was. So let's try rendering that. So, show hide render view. Now I want to adjust our view on this a bit because it's a bit too wide at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use focal length of the camera. So if I select the camera up there, select the picture of a camera there, you can see we've got a focal length there, and I can increase that to zoom it in like so. Then I can hit G to grab the camera, outline, move my mouse down and position it where I want, and that looks reasonable. I'm going to save the file before I forget. Now I'm going to select the tablecloth, and this is the last bit. I'm going to go new material, I'm going to call it silk. I know we had cotton selected in the simulation, but it's going to be silk, okay? And I'm going to select smooth shading over here, which will help get rid of the jaggies, and go to compositing. Now I'm going to use a different shader here. I'm going to add a thing called an anisotropic shader, and that does all sorts of weird things with reflections. It's ideal for stuff like silk or certain metals, and like brushed steel or something like that. Then I'm going to add a mix shader to mix those together. I'm going to make this a nice pink colour, somewhere down there perhaps, and this is going to stay exactly as it is. In fact, with silk you could even make that slightly blue. In fact, that's what I'm going to do, make it very slightly blue, and if I come out from here you can see the effect we've got. You've got a very silk-like effect on those folds. That's exactly what you want, and you can play with that. You can have it less anisotropic, which with silk doesn't look so good. You can have it more anisotropic, which is really totally reflective, which also isn't good. It's going to be somewhere in the middle here, I believe. Now I'm actually not happy with this. I'm going to relight it and then re-render it again. So I'll quickly show you what I'm going to do with the lighting. Now at the moment I've got my spotlight over here and my main light over here, that's just an infill light. I'm going to get rid of that spotlight entirely. I'm going to move my main light up here, and do you remember I said that I can get it to point to things automatically? Well, I'm going to do that now, and if I go into this little chain menu here with that selected, it's object constraints, and we want damp track. Then what are we going to damp track to? What we're going to track to, that's going to be the glass. So we're going to have it always pointing at the glass, and I know from experience we need to select -Z. So now wherever we move that glass, that light's going to be pointing at it all the time. And as you see, wherever we move the light, it'll adjust itself so that it's pointing to our glass. And we're used to seeing lights indoors coming from more overhead, so that's what I'm going to do. If we go into the material settings for that lamp there, it's only at the moment a strength 2, maybe we want something like a strength 20, let's see. So what I've done is short-circuited the materials development process for you and I'm going to show you what I did to get this render. One of the things I did is I reshaped the top part of this glass here, so I thought it was really way too wide, and there we go. So let's have a look at the materials that I changed. Let's go into the compositor. I want to save this first of all. Let's go into the compositor, change this to node view. No, it's a node view I want, not logic editor, thank you. Right, with the glass what I've done is I've mixed a transparent with the glass because it gives a better effect in this particular instance. I don't know why. And 0.273 is what I used as the shader. The other major change I made was with the cloth, and what I've done is I've changed the anisotropy as 0.9, the rotation is 0.2, and the factor between the two is 0.655, so it's got more anisotropic than it has diffuse. And I've changed the diffuse colour to be a bit pinker, a bit lighter. Red 0.8, green 0.297, blue 0.774. That's the colour that I used. And finally the box, I changed the colour on the diffuse to be very much darker, which is 0.149 red, 0.074 green and 0.005 blue. And the rest of it I left the same. Factor is 0.554 between the gloss and the diffuse, and that's it really, and that's all I did. and change the direction of the lighting a little bit, and we get ourselves a reasonably decent render. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you the next time, and we'll add some fruit to our still life. How's that? I'm sure you'll enjoy it.